So, I've apparently been invited to join a study group. I tell Hieronymous while we're eating dinner that night. It's just room service, and it wasn't anywhere near as good as the food I've eaten in Ravine Cottage, but I've started to think that all of my recent culinary excursions had turned me into a picky eater. Oh? Hieronymus asks. Do tell. That's literally all I know, I tell him. Virginia is in it. Minnie is leading it. I'm guessing Jacob might be in it too, but I don't know anything about what they've studied so far, and I feel like I'm so far behind. Hieronymus just shakes his head. You have missed a few months, Tori, but I am more concerned that you missed more of your important lessons last spring. That's a fair concern, I admit. We're going to be learning about more long-range spells, and Virginia mentioned memory spells. Hieronymus stops eating to get a good look at me. I'm okay. I just remember when I had read one of the senior textbooks on memory spells in the library and you freaked out on me. I went to Professor Potsdam to make sure she wouldn't expel me, and that's when she forced me to make the choice to have my parents forget me. I am sorry for that, Tori, he says quietly. I had no idea she would force you to go through with a decision like that under duress. I told her as much, but as I'm sure you could imagine, she said the decision would have had to have been made eventually. I just shrug. I just mean, she is right, but it still wasn't fair to make me make the decision that way. Hieronymus just shakes his head. I'm sorry, Tori. I don't know what else I can say except that I'm sorry I was so cruel to you back then. I was so frustrated that you had forgotten me that I found myself losing my temper more and more at the one person that I should have cared for the most. It's not your fault, I say as I shake my head. If the shoe was on the other foot, I can't say that I really would have been much better. And I did hear you apologizing to me outside my door. I think you stayed out there for hours telling me how sorry you were. Yes, well, Hieronymus just shrugs as he resumes eating. I didn't want to ruin your Christmas holiday. And you didn't, I remind him. We still spent Christmas Day together, and then we spent last Christmas together too. Speaking of, what did you want to do together this Christmas? Do you want to travel somewhere, or do you want to just have an easy vacation in Ravine Cottage? Actually, I was thinking we could visit Beige, he says, then seems to hesitate when he sees the look on my face. If you're up for it. If I'm up for it, I demand, grinning broadly at him. Of course I am. Are things okay, though? I haven't really heard from him much since school started. I'm not sure if he's mad at me for getting him in trouble with his parents for sending Musette into the other world. He will get over it in time if he's not over it already, Hieronymus says with a shrug. I saw how close you two became. He's like a younger brother to you, isn't he? I guess, I reply with a shrug. Honestly, I just want to spend the holiday with you. As long as I'm spending time with you, I'm happy. I just feel like it's going to be really hard for me the next few months when literally every single room I enter is going to remind me of you in some way. Hieronymus just smirks as he shakes his head, and I can't help but grin too. What? Is it so wrong that I like spending time with you? It certainly is a unique reaction, he admits, not altogether unkindly. I still don't know why you developed a crush on me, Tori, especially when I rebuked you with such hostility. I don't know, I reply with a shrug. I liked going to Blue Magic. You were obviously very smart, and sure, you yelled a lot, but it was only really when people weren't paying attention. And you were funny. No one else seemed to think so, but I really liked your snarky, sarcastic sense of humor. And then, when I worked with you in the mailroom, you weren't as mean as you were in class. You were nice, or at least you could be. And then, during the dark dance, after one of the freshmen got knocked out, I remember you telling Potsdam how important it was that we protect wild seeds from their own ignorance. And at first I was like, he doesn't care about students, and he's not a wild seed. Why would he care? And that's when I realized that you do care. A lot. You just don't want other people to know that you care. And that made me feel sad. And then the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to ask you. But I know you're a really private person, so I wouldn't dare. But then I'd be in class and I'd just be thinking, people don't really know that he's just mean to students because he cares about them. So what else don't people know about you? Then, after the Thanksgiving candle tribute, you took me to the Glen, and I was thinking that it was nice just spending time with you. And even if you didn't really talk to me all that much, when you did talk to me, you spoke to me like I was just another adult. And that's when I realized how much I liked spending time with you. Even if we were just sitting in the same room reading together, I wanted to just be near you and watch the way you read, like the way you dart your eyes back and forth when you're really focusing on something, or the way you wet your bottom lip when you're frustrated with something. And that's when I realized I was paying way too close attention to your reading habits, and I was like, why do I know so much about the way he reads? And then I was like, why do I feel weirdly guilty about watching him when he reads? And then I remember my face getting all red and feeling like I was going to vomit. And then I just sort of sat there staring at a wall for an hour. And then when Virginia came back, she asked me what was wrong. And I realized right then that I really did have a crush on you. And then, of course, Potsdam cast the affection spell over Christmas time. And I was happy that you were thinking of me too. But I remember thinking, this is good. Maybe I can be his friend at the very least. And then, less than a month later, we were married. Hieronymous just chuckles as he shakes his head. I do recall some of this from your diary. I also recall you calling me a monster. Virginia was the one who told me she heard you were a monster, I remind him. I was just writing down what I heard. I knew you weren't really a monster, especially after you helped me with a treasury campaign as a way to spend more time with me. Hieronymous blushes. And how do you know that? Well, I never did actually read the book, I admit, but Jacob did, and I found out through him that you weren't allowed to actually help anyone with their campaign since you were the teacher overseeing it. That's why Virginia got William to try to help me win the election. But once you offered to help me, I couldn't turn you down, now could I? He shakes his head. I had every reason to dislike you, especially at the beginning. You bumped into me in the quad on your first day, and then I found the love note that you wrote left on my desk. I wanted to brand you a troublemaker, but I couldn't. You teleported out of the dungeons on your first exam, something that only a handful of students had been able to do before. Not only that, but I saw you in all of my classes, taking notes, and you always answered every question I threw your way, even the ones that had no ready answer. You were smart, and you were studious, and the more I spent time with you trying to find your faults, the more I couldn't find any. I felt so guilty when we got married because I thought I had ruined your life. I never could have imagined that you would make mine infinitely better. And mine, I remind him. That's why it's so hard being at Iris all by myself now. The whole school is like a giant testament to the place where we fell in love, and now I have to be there without you. I don't want to be there without you. Is there really not a way that you can get Potsdam to give you your job back, at least for a few months? There's not, he says as he shakes his head. And to be honest, Tori, I wouldn't want it even if she offered. I am glad I met you, I am, but I never realized until I left it behind me how miserable teaching there was making me. What about being a viscount? I ask in confusion. I thought that made you long for teaching at Iris. Both are horrors of their own, Hieronymous says with a sigh. Teaching gave me the added benefit of being closer to you, but it also made things more difficult between us. You were a student of the institution, and I was its designated disciplinarian. You didn't like it when I stifled your youthful independence, and I didn't like having to force you to obey every Iris Academy policy. That's my fault, I tell him firmly. I was a child. I didn't realize what kind of difficult position I was putting you in because I was too focused on myself. Everything that happened last year, including my expulsion, is my fault. I should honestly just consider myself lucky that you would even consider still being with me after I betrayed your trust so horribly. Tori, Hieronymus's voice trails off as he shakes his head. You were young. You made a mistake. You were afraid to tell me, and considering my fraught temper, I could understand that you would be reticent to open up to me. You thought you were doing a good deed. You just didn't know any better. I just wish I had been more open with you, and had given you more guidance. Then give it to me right now, I tell him. How am I supposed to get through the final year of Iris Academy? Because, honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think I should just drop out of school right this second and just spend the rest of my life with you. You are spending the rest of your life with me, Hieronymus tells me calmly. We may not be physically in the same room every day, but there isn't a morning that goes by where you're not the first thing on my mind. We may be in different places, Tori, but I love you, and that's not something that distance can change. True, but it's easier to show you how much I love you when you're right here beside me, I remind him as I get up and slide into his lap. He kisses me gently, wrapping both arms around me. You know I have my reservations about leaving you here. You can always come back to Europe with me in the morning and go back to Miss Minchin's. I know, I say with a sigh, but she is foul, Hieronymus. I mean, you've never met her, but just be thankful for that. I pause for a moment. Actually, now that I think about it, I wish you had. I wish you had met them, just so that you could give them a good telling off. I really like the way you insult people without making it super obvious that you're insulting them. It's one of my favorite things about you. Oh? Hieronymus asks, kissing my temple. Do tell. You know I can't think straight when you're distracting me, I remind him. I could stop, Hieronymus offers, but I just shake my head. No, this is good, I say as I kiss him again. I came here for you, nothing else. I have to admit, I am surprised, he says as he pulls away slightly. I thought you would have rushed over to the television set as soon as you saw it. I stop and look over at the television set. True, I had noticed it when I walked in, but I knew that my time with Hieronymus was short, and I know how he felt about low world culture. Still, as I look away from the TV, something else catches my eye. What's that? I stand up and walk over to the desk, only to see a laptop folded neatly in the corner, a long black power cord trailing into the socket on the wall behind it. I don't know, Tori, he replies. He sounds a little exasperated, not that I could blame him. You tell me. It's a laptop, I reply as I stare at him. A laptop meant limitless sources of information at my fingertips. Ellen had used one to find out what really happened to Musette at a local library, but if I had a laptop at my disposal, I could use it to... Don't worry about it, I say as I walk back over to him, taking his hand as I pull him towards the bed with me. I came here for you, remember? Low world technology can wait until after I graduate. Or, at least, until Hieronymus fell asleep.